All right, so as I said, I'm willing to do a few random select problems. I've kind of gone through and highlighted which ones I'm going to do so that you can take a look at this and hopefully check your work. Number 4, I see that there's an A value. The B value is just a 1. There's no number there. But the A value is 1. That tells me that the amplitude to this problem is 3. We're not doing any sort of shifts yet. That will come in the next section and in the next part. But the highest it's ever going to get then is 3. The lowest it's ever going to get 3. The period, there is no B value, so the period doesn't change. The period is the 360 degrees, pi. So I'm going to go ahead on the x-axis, do 4 tally marks, or 4 hash marks after the origin, or to the right of the origin. That last one I'm going to call 360, so I want to do a full period by then. So that means each one of these ones in between is a 90-degree mark, so 90, 180, 270. All right, it's a cosine problem. Cosine starts at the maximum. Unless it's flipped, it starts at the maximum and works its way down. So when I'm here at 0, I actually start up at the maximum. So 0, 3 is my first point, because the cosine of 0 is 0. Or, sorry, it's 1 rather, times 3 is 3. Then cosine of 90 degrees is 0. So I just work my way down. Cosine of 180 then is at the minimum. So I get a negative, it was a negative 1, but times 3 gives us negative 3. Cosine of 270 would be back to 0. 3 times cosine of 360 would be up to positive 3. Don't make a V. Make your graph nice and curved and periodic. Don't go above your maximums. That's what it should look like. Number 7. Here we've got an amplitude of 5. I don't care that it's negative. I mean, I do care when I graph it, but in terms of the amplitude, I don't care. The period, there's no B value, so it's still 360 degrees. It is flipped because of that negative. So sine always starts at the origin, so 0, 0. So it still starts there. When you flip it, it's still at 0, 0. But then because it's flipped, we go down first. So when I get to 90 degrees, I'm actually going to be down at negative 5. And then I work my way back up to the midline, and then up to the maximum, and then back down to the midline. Connect the dots. And there's our graph. Number 9. So our amplitude here is 2. Period is still the same, 360. This one's also flipped because the A value is negative. Okay, it's cosine. Cosine always starts at the top or at the max, except this time it's flipped. So instead of starting at the max, it's actually going to start down here at the minimum at negative 2. And then it comes up to the midline. Then it goes up to the maximum, back down to the midline, and then back down to the minimum to complete the full cycle or full period. Curve through the points. Make sure your arrows make sense, that it actually continues that pattern. Don't have arrows that go to just wherever randomly. Okay, let's go to the next page. I want to take a look at number 12. Here there's no A value, so our amplitude is just 1. But we've got a B value, that's going to affect my period. So B value is 4, so we have to take 360 divided by 4, that's 90 degrees. Still going to make my 4 hash marks, and I'm going to kind of spread them out now instead of trying to fit them in a small area. So I complete the full period at 90 degrees. So my last hash mark, that 4th one after my origin, is 90. So then I have to work back and cut that in half. So if I go back to the middle one, half of 90 is 45. The second one should be a 45. Half of 45 is 22.5. So I see now that I'm going by 22.5s. So I add 22.5 to 45. I get 67.5. Okay, it is not flipped. Cosine always starts at the maximum unless it's flipped, so this is no exception. Starts up at the maximum, then it goes to the midline, down to the minimum, back up to the midline, back up to the maximum. And there's a period of that function. Number 14, sine. Okay, amplitude, there's no a value, so the amplitude is 1. The period, I have to take 360 divided by 1/4. I don't like to divide by fractions, so instead I'd multiply by its reciprocal. 360 times 4. So 360 times 2 is 720, and then I got to double that again, that's 1440. So make my tally or hash marks. The last one is 1440. The middle one is half of that, so 720. Half of that is 360, so I'm going up by 360s. So 1080 is the third one. Just going to go up to 1 and down to -1. So this is really, if I had all these on the same graph, this one's much longer than the other ones. It doesn't repeat very quickly. It just kind of slowly works its way through. It's sine, so it starts at the origin, and then it goes up, since it's not flipped. So at 360, it'll finally be up at 1. At 720, be back to 0. At 1080, it'll be down to -1. And then by 1440, be back to the midline again. I'm going to go to number 15. Here we've got a negative b value. The a value is still 1, so the amplitude is 1. The period, I don't care that it's negative when I do the period. I take its absolute value, so that's 2, so 360 divided by 2 is 180. Now, since it's sine, the b value does flip it. It's important that we label these marks that we put on the graphs. So you see me taking time to do it every time. I expect you to do the same. Sine starts at the origin. Normally it goes up. This one's flipped, so it's going to go down. So when I get to 45 degrees, it'll be down at -1. And then up to 0. And then up to +1. And then down to 0. Number 17. It's going to work similarly. Amplitude is 1. Period 360 divided by 2 is 180. It is negative b, but it's a cosine. A negative b value doesn't affect the cosine, so it's not going to flip. It only flips when it's a sine. Oops. Sorry, this is a 180. Cosine starts at the maximum. It's not flipped, so it does in fact start at the maximum here. By 45, it's down at the midline. By 90, it's at the minimum, back up to the midline, and then by the 180, we're back up to the maximum. Okay, and then last couple, the next page. I want to go through number 20 and 21. Amplitude. I don't care that it's negative at the moment. It is a 2. Period. I have to take 360 divided by 4. I don't care that it's negative for a moment. 360 divided by 4 is 90. Okay. It is sine. We've got to, I guess, consider whether it's flipped. The a value is negative. That flips the sign. The b value is also negative. That also flips the sign. So two negatives, both of which flip, so it actually, they cancel each other out. It doesn't flip. So it is going to actually act like a sine. So it starts at the origin and then travels up since it's not flipped. Number 21. The amplitude here is 1. Period 360 over 2 is 180. Okay, now is it flipped or not? Well, it's a cosine. The A does flip it. A B doesn't affect it, so we can't say there's a negative like there was with sine where they cancel each other out. We don't care about the B value being negative. You can just ignore that. You can pretend it's positive when it's cosine. So really, we only have only one negative that flips it. So it is in fact flipped. It doesn't get unflipped. So cosine normally starts at the max, but because it's flipped, it's going to start down here at the min. Work its way up to the 0, up to the max, back down to the 0, back down to the minimum. And there we have it.